This is Short Hammer. It is the 13th of December, 2020, and this is Trading Zones. Last week was really interesting. It's the first time in a while that the Bears sort of got fed by the market a little bit. So if we're looking at the MES, we did tag the 30 over the 3700s, pushed up to 3714, but we did pull back nicely. And even though we pushed down beyond the expected move around 3630, I believe, we did pull back within that. So next week or this upcoming week should be definitely very interesting as far as range. And so the levels that I'll be watching for on the MES on the futures here is, can we get a rise over 3667? And will we get more buying action to clear the 3682s? And can we get back into the 3700s? We'll see. Could this be the beginning of a nice bit of selling? Maybe. Could this just be a slight drawdown because of news cycle and Hanukkah? Also possible. So we'll see how the market sort of reacts to the slight selling that we had this week. But we want to see if we can get back over 3667 first. If we can't, if we sell down to the 3610s and the buyers don't step in, then keep your eye open for the 3587s, 3565s, then 3534s. But I don't expect that to happen. We'll see if the slight bounce that we saw on Friday continues into this week. On the Russell, it was just strong overall. And we did see a slight pullback, but it's still, all-time high insanity. So a lot of the small caps, a lot of the financials, even though we saw a slight pullback in the financials on Friday, they didn't really go that far. So it was just really a slight pullback. So we'll see how that plays out, because we did have weakness in tech, not just last week, but I think maybe the week before. Tech was kind of funky. And the reason why we didn't see sort of strong selling in the market is because if you look at the run that we've been on, it's been financials. Financials have really been sort of dragging the market up a hill. And so we want to see, as long as those financials stay up, the market should be fine, right? So we'll see how the financials do in this upcoming week, and we'll look at Goldman Sachs. That's what we'll look at, and you sort of see what happened with Goldman Sachs on Friday, and the difference between that and the other days. When people were just buying, and the market was still going up, and even though tech was weak, we didn't see as strong of a dip on these other days. So we'll see. So let's go into Amazon, which was really interesting this week. So you see you see the levels, right? So if you remember, I drew this line right here around 3220-ish, and we needed to advance above that line for us to see bullish action. That's what I was waiting for. Could we get bullish above this line for a run to the 3260s, right? And if you look back, we haven't been able to really get bearish below this line. This line is about 3086-ish. So if you go back to about a month ago, we've kind of been in this, I'll say it's a minor channel, right? Short-term channel between the 32 20s and the 30 84 86-ish area, right? So what I'll be watching for on Amazon for this week is, do we get a buy back up, and can we get a run back up near the 32 20s? If not, if we gap down and we see bearish action below these 3080s, then I'll definitely be looking for a short entry, see if we can get through 30 3068s, And if we dip, then we have potential extension down to the 3020s. So we'll see how that plays out. But on Amazon, the immediate areas that I would keep an eye on are the 3142 areas, 3193, 3220s, 3268s to the downside. I'd keep an eye on these 3080s. You definitely want those to hold. If we get below that and there's no buying in the 3060s, then the 3020s are coming up, and maybe we'll go a little bit lower. The 2950s are definitely an area I'd like to revisit, but have no idea. If you pay attention to Amazon, Amazon announced they've just been doing so many amazing things. One of the things that they said in the last week or so, um, one, they're having amazing numbers as far as what they got on um, Black Friday and their Cyber Week. They're having amazing sales. Numbers are through the roof. The other thing that they mentioned is that as far as Amazon Web Services, the, the new customers or the amount of businesses that have come online and that are using Amazon Web Services has far outpaced their expectations. So their expectations for, I'll say, the next 5 years, they're already hitting that now. I don't know if it's based on what's going on with COVID, but they're seeing mass, like just incredible adoption of Amazon Web Services and utilization by companies, way beyond what they expected at this point. Right? They're expecting to be like 2022, and you can read up on this, but they feel that they're ahead there. Also, they just launched their, I can't remember the name of it, but it's their health. It's like a health product. So what that does is that for Amazon, they'll be pulling in medical information, and people will be able to reference that medical information. And it's a big deal because if I understand it correctly, that will allow doctors to be able to, when they're doing they're doing a prescription, to be able to see if there are other things that a particular patient may have as far as medicines that they're taking, where there could be a bad reaction or bad mix of those medicines, right? So it's like another level. They're not, I believe what we were thinking before was that they were going to launch a marketplace just for their employees. But it seems as if there's another play at hand where they'll kind of be more of an integral part of the data management of healthcare, right? As far as individual patients, that it won't be just, hey, if you're with Cigna, Cigna has data on you, or this company has data on you. It's like, no, they're just going to have data on wherever you are, whoever you have your insurance through, that they may be accessing this Amazon product as far as your medical records and the data. So that's how I understood it. I think it's a big deal, but we'll see how that plays out. But just on the technicals, what we're watching on Amazon is, will we stay inside this little channel, this little zone? And if we go outside of this, will Amazon expand? Netflix had a really interesting week. And you see this little area here. And what we were expecting is, as long as Netflix remains over the 493s, then it's a buy, right? You get long. When it pulls back into this area, you get long. And what's funny is I made a play on this, I believe it was Thursday, where I actually tried to short this, and it sold back down, and I didn't and I ended up not really holding that play. So it would have worked out if I'd held, but I didn't hold. But the main point is that I went against my own setup and had to just try to trade that back. So it was really an interesting play on Netflix. So what I'll be watching for on Netflix is what we discussed the last video, is that there are like two things at play. And one narrative is, hey, the vaccines are coming, everyone's going to get back into the economy. People won't be home. So these work from home tickers that have been running like crazy, Netflix, Zoom, Amazon, they're going to go back down, right? And the competing part of that narrative is, hey, yes, the vaccines are coming, but the next quarter, people will still be home. So the numbers should still be good for the next earnings season. Maybe it will be the earnings season after that, or the earnings season after that one, right? Because if you're thinking the summer, it may be the fall before people are, have received all the vaccines, or they have enough vaccines and people are back to work, like everyone, right? Not just frontline workers, not just emergency personnel, where everyone's back to work. So there are competing narratives as far as, the work from home tickers. So tickers like Netflix, they're definitely competing narratives. And I guess it's, what's your time horizon? And based on that, which narrative do you feel fits that, right? So for me on Netflix, what I'll be watching is, can we get over the 504, the 507 area? And do we see the buyers stepping in? We've had an issue in the 512s and between the 512s and 513s. So we'll see if that's an area that is an area that we struggle through if we get back over the 504, 507 area. But up until then, as long as we're above 493s, I will be looking to see how the day set steps up, where the buyers step in, and looking for longs. If we're below 493 and we're bearish below that, down into the 490 area and lower, I'll be looking for short setups, right? To drop into the 485s, maybe a back test of the 493 area and fade that down. So we'll see how it plays on Netflix. But definitely very interesting. The narratives are definitely at play here. So it's really interesting which way Netflix is going to break, right? It's not at all-time highs. Um, so can it go up? Yes. But do the people that or the investors or traders that tend to invest or trade Netflix, do they at this point, because the market is forward looking, feel as if there's more value in Netflix going forward, or do they feel that some of that value may be kind of tapped, right? And they're trying to, give this to someone else to try to, you know, get this, see if it's going to run further, but they've sort of got as much juice as they need from this. So we'll see how that plays out over the next few weeks on Netflix. NVIDIA, I was waiting for NVIDIA to get over the 546s. It kind of did, but it didn't hold. We didn't get a run here. And instead, we got a little bit of downside action. But what we did see is that at each one of our levels, whether it's the 531s or the 514s, the buyers did step in and we didn't see continuation, right? So here we got a pullback. So if you were playing this off the 531s, nice bounce here, then we were unable to hold over the 536s. We rolled back to the downside, back tested that area, sold down to the 514s, bounced and pulled back into that area again and bounced one more time. So if you're talking about NVIDIA, it does look a little bit weak. What I'll be watching for on NVIDIA is, do we hold the 514s? If we hold the 514s on NVIDIA, I'll be looking for pullbacks to try to get long, right? And if we pull back into the 530s, this 531-inch area, I'll be waiting to see if the sellers are active and if that sort of pushes us back down. And because I'm more of a retracement trader and more of a reactionary trader, um, I do better when I wait for the reaction to the area, reaction to the move, and then follow that play rather than when it touches trying to play it off. You sort of have to wait, because for me, let's say like this, right? If there's an overextension into an area and then you see weakness on a lower time frame, that's a good opportunity to get in if you see weakness. But if something is sort of grinding up into an area, you're not quite sure if, for example, look at this, pop through, pull back, held, it's gone. Right now, if you played right here at this line on this run, if you're playing options, you probably never got an opportunity to get out. If you manage to hold and got in up here on this pullback, you can get out, but the trend is up, right? So to fade that wouldn't work, or I wouldn't think it would work, right? So I'd wait to see what's the reaction. So we pushed up over, we're back testing here. The reaction, they held it. This previous area that was supply is now a demand pocket. They're buying us up. So you follow that wave on the next leg up, and you sort of scale out as it goes up. So that's interesting. When we pull back here, we see that we couldn't get bearish below here on any one of these 4-hour time frames. You want to look at each day. We couldn't get bearish below the 531s. The buyers kept stepping in and pushing us back over. And so we were gliding right back up, right? So that's what's interesting. Then here, what we see is now we're bearish below, meaning we're seeing multiple candle closes below the 531s. We sort of almost went down to the 514s, bounces back up, couldn't catch a bit over, pulled us back below. So you're watching this candle action, this daily action, this price action. You're watching this and you're seeing how this is moving. So that's why when you see these levels, you want to look on the lower time frame and whatever you're using, whether you're using the EMAs, whether you're using, Bollinger Bands, whatever volatility indicators you may be using, if you're using the tick, whatever you're using, these levels are levels to watch, right? If you're using pivots, if these levels are levels to watch for you to say, hey, if we pull back here and I see the buyer step in, I'm more bullish and I'm looking for a long entry. If I see us drop down into this area and the buyers are just not there and it's pulled back and we're weak and we're going back down, then I'm looking for a short setup. So that's how we use these lines. So on NVIDIA going into this upcoming week, as I mentioned, I want to see if the 514s hold. If we can grind through the 520s, like the lower 520s, the 521s, the 522s, 23s, that area, if we can get through that. And if we get a run up into the 530s, if so, I want to see if we have sellers here. If we roll through the 514s and I see bearish action below this, then the last time that we pulled through, we did drop down around the 507s, but maybe we'll see an extension down here around the 495s. We have to see. But look at this, all this candle structure here around the 505s. Look at that all through here. So that could be an interesting area in case we roll through the 514s. But we have to wait for the market to open up on Monday. And you sort of see what the buyers and sellers are telling you. Facebook. So what we've mentioned on Facebook is above the 279 area, we're a little bit more bullish. Below 279, we're a little bit more bearish. So that's why this green line it's a different color than these other lines. So on Facebook, nice pop here, and we pulled back into this 279 area. Buyer stepped in, popped us back up. But here, when we came back through, we sold heavily through. We sort of back tested here and then more selling. And so we have to see if there's continuation to the downside with Facebook because there's a lot of news about different states that are suing Facebook, right? And so there's a lot going on with Facebook as far as litigation and the politics around it. So we'll see if there's more weakness in the upcoming week. If it continues to sell, the next level that we have is down here around the 264 area. So if we get down to the 264, if you're not gonna look for an entry to fade this down to here if there's weakness. If we get down around the 264 area, what you want to look for is, hey, are buyers stepping in? If the buyers are not stepping in, if the buyers are stepping out of the way, then watch out for the 261s and potentially down here around the 254s. But you see these lower wicks, and so maybe we'll see a little bit of reversal here right around this 258-ish, 259-ish area. But we'll see what the setup is next week for Facebook. But as of right now, when I see this, even though I sort of see this projection to the downside in the 270 area, I'm going to see if there's more weakness heading into next week and if we get an extension into the 264s. But we'll see what the news says and sort of what the buyers and sellers are telling us as far as the price. Now on Friday, tech was pretty much weak. Amazon was weak. Apple was weak. And um, I'll say the one ticker that was really grating on our nerves was Microsoft, because where so many other tech tickers were weak, Microsoft was just on the bid all day. They were just buying that thing up, and it was insane. And Apple did drop through the pivot support that we were watching, but then it bought right back up through it. And so it was just a crazy thing where you're almost expecting this nonstop selling, right? And the market to sort of really slightly roll over. But the strength of Microsoft is just wouldn't go. And the financials backed off, but they didn't quite, it's not like they sold off, right? And so even though the market dipped, you sort of saw that reversal and the buyers step in and they ran that bad boy right back up. So Microsoft is very interesting. So looking at Microsoft, it's right at our 213 level. So what we want to see here, look at all these wicks. You can look all the way across, go back a few months, and you see that around this 213, there's a lot of interaction, a lot of buyers and sellers battling over price. So what we want to see is an advancement if you're bullish above the 213s and a squeeze into the 215s, maybe even the 217s. 217.70s, you see that's green line, similar to what we have on Facebook. Above that line, like a for me, it's like a swing door above that line, a little bit more bullish. May see a pop into the 221s. Below this line, a little bit more bearish. So if this 213 rejects, I would look for a pullback right around the 211s. It'd be even better if we saw a drop into the 208s, but I don't know what the catalyst for that would be. I haven't seen any negative news on Microsoft. So it's not like Facebook where there's actually negative news floating. That could be the catalyst for more downside selling, right? So just watching this Microsoft, we'll see how it does next week, but it's right off a level for us. So we'll be watching these 213s. If we sell, maybe the 208s, 202 is possible, but doubtful. If we buy the 215s, watch the 217s. If we can get bullish above that, then the 221s open up for us. Taking a peek at Intel, what we mentioned on Intel was watch for a pullback near the 49s, I believe it was what we were mentioning. And we did see a pullback. We also saw a bounce and sort of the buyer step in. Intel, I'm more watching this, and we'll see if we hold the 49s. If we do not, keep an eye out for the 47.27s. If the buyers do step in, watch out for the 51s. What you want to see if you're bullish on Intel, you want us to get back above this 51 level, and you want to see buyers step in and give us a squeeze. You can see these tops here to the left. You want to be bullish above the 51.70s, and you want this thing to squeeze and break this previous high wave here at 52.66. But if you look at where the buying began on this and where it broke this level, right around the 47.27s, 47.20s, you can say, and pullback we held and we sort of legged up each level. What you're watching is on the pullbacks, the buyers are stepping in. They did that at the 45.40s, at the 47.20s. They did that here at the my fault here at the 49 16s, right? Popped through, back test hold, buyer stepped in. They did not do that here at the 51.11s. So what you'll see is a different pattern than you've seen on these other ones where within close proximity to the break of the supply demand line, there was a pullback or back test, and the buyer stepped in, and they were bullish above that level. So what we see here is above the 51s. On the back test, it failed. And look how long this wick is, and there's a back test into that area, and it dropped. right? So it's a different setup now. So what we want to see is on this secondary back test, because this will be the first back test, on the secondary back test of the 49.16s, are the buyers going to hold, and do they have the strength, and does this stock have the momentum to push back through the 51s and squeeze? We'll see. But you see these levels here. Above the 51s is the 53.50s, and it's the 55.70s, which is the bottom of a zone we have here. To the downside, 47.20s and 45.40s. We'll see how this sort of plays out over the next few weeks. CMG. On CMG, what we were mentioning was above the 13.12s, we want to be bullish above that. Did we get that? Yep, ran right into the 13.48s. That's, but above this is a beautiful run, right? But above this, we don't see any bullish action. They sold this bad boy, came right back down, and we weren't able to hold over the 13.12s. We'll see what next week looks like. But if we see selling below the 12.90s, if we don't see buyers stepping at 12.96 and it gets its weakness below this, keep your eye open on the 12.70s, then the 12.39s, then maybe the 11.87s. I don't think that this is going to happen in one swoop. But what I'll be watching is if you were to draw a line here, we're still slightly we're uptrending. So we want to see if the buyers do pop us back over the 13.12s on CMG. And that would be interesting. But I'll keep an eye out for this level. This is our next level, 12.96, and see if there's strength there. If there's not, then watch the next level at the 12.70s. And the 12.70s, if you remember, was an area that we were watching. Look at this break. Just beautiful, right? Pull back into here, pull below, bought back up to it. Look at these wicks down below, back above. So it's an area where you see a lot of interactions. There have been a few paint throughs where it's dropped or it's ran through that level, but this level is still interesting. So we'll see if that's the level that we get to in this upcoming week, or if in the 12.90s the buyers step in, get us through the 13.12s, and we run back here to the 13.40s. The last time we were here, look at this here, same thing. Not too much time above these 13.48 levels, right? Look at that. The air is thin. That all that's telling us so far is that to this point, right? As far as from September to now, right? What the buyers are telling us is that they don't see much value above the 13.48s, and maybe that narrative will change. Who knows? But so far, what they're telling us is, hey, we're not spending multiple days above these 13.48 levels, meaning that we're not bullish multiple days above this. We're not buying and making, crazy highs, pushing through the 13.94s. Every time we get here, it's a little bit weaker, doesn't go quite as high. We'll see if we get a pullback here, but this is an interesting setup here on CMG. Let's take a peek at McDonald's. Made a few plays on this week. I do like McDonald's. Now we're down near the 206s. We'll see if the buyers step in, but so far what we saw was we sold to the 213s. We pulled back tested that, dropped through the 209s to the 206s, pulled back, hit the 209s. So what I'm seeing here is hitting this level, pull back, hit the next level, pull back. If we see a sell through the 206s into the 201s, should I expect a pullback to the 206s? So that might be interesting on McDonald's. Or might this area above this 206 be an area where the buyers have decided, hey, we think there's more value here to the upside, so we might get a squeeze. So I definitely will be watching McDonald's to see if this pullback and fail trend continues and it makes lower lows. If it doesn't make lower lows and the buyers step in and it pushes back above the 209s, I might be looking for a long to the 213s. And, most people don't hold level to level the full way. So if you have more than one contract, if you have two contracts, then as see this begin to run, when you're up about $2, you can look to exit. But if you've got one contract, lock your profits quickly, right? And build up to the point where you can have multiple contracts and be able to at least have one ride for the entirety of a move. But just my opinion. But this is an interesting setup. We'll see if this continues to make lower lows or if the buyers pop it over 209 here. But if we do make lower lows, watch the 201s, the 196s. This is a little zone that we have. 191s below that 187. So the upside, if we pop over 209.43, watch out for the 213.40s, the 216.90s, and then maybe the 221s. But I don't know what the catalyst would be for a move that strong when we're seeing a little bit of weakness here in McDonald's. We'll see if that continues. ZM. Zoom is interesting. So if you remember that sell that we had, and I believe this sell happened, please double check this. Don't want to give you bad information, but I believe this sell happened when a vaccine was first announced, right? And we saw this selling on these work from home tickers. But we reversed around the 375s. We came back to test it. Buyer stepped in, higher low, and we popped up, made a higher high just based on this wave pushing back up. Then we sold again. So when we approach the 375s, it's still a demand pocket. It seems as if the buyers are still there. They give us a nice little pop out of that area, right? So what we want to see is how strong is this bounce? Will this bounce take us above the 401s? Will buyers step in? Squeeze us up through the 410s, 415s into the 430s, or are we going to reject here around the 401s, roll back over, excuse me, and sell back through the 375s? So I want to see if the 375s break as far as, bearish action below that. The last time we had bearish action below that was prior to the 9th of September, right? So here is a little bit of bearish action below this, but they popped us right back above it, back tested, held. And since then, this area, this 375 has been an area where the buyers, have seemingly stepped in on each time we've touched that area. So we'll see if this continues to happen and if they're strong enough to push this back up over the 400 into the 400 over the 401 area on ZM. And this also is another one of those tickers, work from home ticker. You have in one hand the vaccines, they're coming, people are headed back to work. This thing should lose clients. On the other side, you have, hey, we still have, another quarter, maybe two, of people working from home. And also the question is going to be of all the people that, have been working from home or telecommuting, how many companies may adopt that as a semi-permanent setup, right? With a portion of their workforce remaining home and being able to utilize Zoom that way, where you sort of have less people in the building, less overhead in the building, but you have more of those workers that are home. And for some companies, it's been great. It's been very productive. So we'll see how ZM plays out with those competing narratives. I think is really interesting. Take a peek over at Tesla. Tesla is insane. I thought this thing was going to sell and repeat the pattern that we saw here back in September, but it didn't, right? The buyer stepped in, pushed this bad boy up. There was an announcement, I believe, Friday of a company that has a battery that charges in, I believe it's 10 minutes or less. So we'll see. I know Elon, I think he announced that the company is moving to Texas. Not sure what the tax implications for that are and how that benefits them, but I'm sure there are some. But not sure if that overrides the challenges that they're facing right now. So we'll see on Tesla. But it was a nice pullback. The buyers did step in around the 560s, push this thing back up. We want to see bullish action above the 616s and the pop over the 651s. We want to see this bad boy run, right? So we'll see if that happens. If we see more sell side and we go back to the downside, I would expect the 560s to hold. If they do not, I opened 562, 554, 546, then 518. You do want to watch here right around this 537 area if we get down there, because you see this reversal where we reversed here and came back on this nice long run. We hit our head here, got a concussion, came back down. So we'll see how Tesla plays out. Just a lot of news surrounding Tesla, and there will definitely be a lot of politics surrounding a company like Tesla. So very interesting. GOOS, it did do what we thought it would do on this pullback, but we couldn't hold over the 33. So what we want to watch for here is, do we continue to sell below the 30/20s? So I'll be watching GOOS. If we sell below the 30/20s, I'll be looking for a short setup on this to see how deep we can go down here, maybe through the 29s, maybe down to the 26s. That's possible, but we'll see. GOOS, definitely winner company, but for the if the market is going to be forward looking, right? Um, so this is the winter season. For the next earnings, they should have good numbers, but moving forward from that, how many places in the world will people be dealing with inclement weather? Will it be freezing cold? So we'll see about that as far as the buyers of Zoom. This is a nice run. I mean, not Zoom, of GOOS. This is a nice run that it's been on, and this is a sharp sell, right? Sharp drop here. If we'd held the 3230s and pushed over 3370s, and the buyers were holding this and we're getting a squeeze with the 35s, I'll be a little bit more bullish on this. But because we pulled back and we sort of didn't catch a bid, where meaning buyers didn't step in and reverse this downward momentum, this downward push, but instead we're making lower lows, we're going even lower than this wave, then I think it's interesting to see if the 30/20s or if the $30, the 30 or 30s can hold it all. If they do not, I'll be looking for potential short fades of this. Just drops of $1 or $2 or $3 down from this 30/28 area. So we'll see how that holds up. But for me on the intraday, I'll be looking for trend and setups. So I'm not just gonna say, oh, this is below 30/28, let me get short here. I'll be looking for setups and seeing exactly what the market's telling me and follow that wave, whether it's a buy up from this area or if it's a fade and a sell below this area. Etsy, another one that we mentioned that we wanted everyone to watch to see if we'd hold this back test here around the 154.90s. The answer is yes. We're now up near the 170s. Can this continue? Quite a few people say that the stronger tickers you tend to get stronger and the weaker tickers tend to get weaker. Well, this bad boy is strong, but Etsy is one of those companies that has benefited greatly from the shutdown. Right now, a lot of different states are shutting down as the COVID-19 numbers are rising. So does Etsy have another run in her? I think she might. So we'll be watching this for good setups and a good play. And remember, for me, I'm a retracement trader. So when something does something like this, where it's popping off the top and it can go, I'm going to be utilizing Elisa's pivot setups and pivots to look for entries and exits on Etsy, right? On the intraday time frame. Just because for me, I have no lines here. So if I didn't have Elisa's pivots, I'd basically be trading blind because there is no retracement here, right? This thing is just breaking out. So we'll see how that shakes out. But Etsy is very interesting. This is Goldman Sachs. So we saw this slight pullback, and that's exactly what it is. It's a pullback. What we mentioned that we wanted to watch was um, this pullback here into the two upper 220s. We did buy back up, and from there we made higher highs just on this wave and this run, right? Not talking about the other runs, just on this run, right? So let's watch and see if the buyers can get us back over the 243 area and squeeze into the 249s, or if we're weak and we dip, right? So I'll be watching Goldman Sachs, because Goldman Sachs is super interesting. When it decides to go in the direction it can really go. So if we sell through the upper 220s, I think this thing may be giving us a nice little pullback, right? So we'll see where this can go, or if they're going to buy this up. But to the upside, we have 243, 249, and 255. To the downside, we have 232, 226, and then 214. Goldman Sachs is definitely interesting. And last but not least, the SPY, and just higher highs. Thing is going. So we'll see how this plays out, if the market is able to keep this up, and if we continue to make higher highs. For me, I need to draw some new lines on this and get some new levels. I have been using Elise's pivots for these trades, because that's all I have. I don't have anything to retrace to from all the way up here. So we'll see how that plays out. If you like this video, please don't hesitate to tap the like button. And if you'd like to receive more videos like this, and also videos from Elisa as she shows you how she utilizes her pivot strategy to find great pre-market, intraday, and post-market setups, please subscribe to our Power of Pivots channel. Thank you so much for your time. Remain safe, and wish you a great week of trading.